Well, welcome to Based with Senator Alex Antic. That's me. This is our podcast. It's been going great guns so far, and today's guest is going to be a really interesting, if not difficult, discussion with a young woman, 20 years of age, an Adelaide woman from the southern suburbs here. Hanna Moore is her name. She has experienced the trauma of a vaccine injury back in November of 2021, and she's going to tell you her story and her experience, and it's a brave thing to do. She's really gone out on a limb on this so that her story can get out there, because it's just simply not being reported by any of the media at the moment. So I asked her to come on. It's a difficult thing to do. She's come in with her mum and dad in order to tell this difficult story, and it's really brave of her. So let's get right into it. Based with Senator Alex Antic and Hanna Moore. And Hanna, welcome. Thank you for coming in today, and thank you for your courage and telling your story. I'm going to get into a little bit about your experience through COVID and after and beyond. But do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself, just to start off with, what you do, what your background is? You're a South Australian native, which is great. And tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Hanna Moore. I'm 20 years old, and I've always been really fit and active, and always been in a lot of sports all throughout like high school and primary school. Travelled interstate for netball. Was really into running.
Fit and healthy.
Yep.
Yeah. What sort of sports? Netball, running, athletics.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Okay. All right. That's putting me to shame. Okay. Let's wait till you get to almost 50. And no, that's great. And so that's a school thing. You're doing that all through school and after. So you obviously are out of school now, and you've been studying. And tell us a little bit about the after school period.
So I graduated in 2020, which is kind of when COVID first kicked off, I guess. I can't.
That's all right. I mean, if that comes up, we'll just ask it again if you like, if you can do it, or if you want to avoid something. Any breaks you need. You left school in 2020, or you came to the end of 2020, and you wanted to study, you wanted to get out and do some other things. Tell us a little bit about post-school.
Yeah, definitely. So I wanted to kind of look into study for working in childcare and become qualified in the job I was in, which was after-school care, before and after-school care, which was an OSH at a primary school, but wasn't too sure about that yet. So, I remember.
Was that just a sort of just making decisions about life, and it might be this, might be something else. You're thinking about something else.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't really know what to do. I got all my SACE points pretty early throughout school, so I left earlier than I left in end of term 1 of year 12. So I didn't. So got a job, and got on to earning money, I guess.
Sort of hard to go back to study when you're on that treadmill. I've got a fair memory of that. It's a while ago, but anyway, I remember the time, and it does take time to find out what you want to do. But you had a bit of a passion for childcare, and what do you put that down to? What was the sort of background of that?
I don't know. I just kind of, my mum worked in childcare a lot, so I kind of just liked what the stories she would tell about it. Loved kids, so loved working with them. And
it's just becomes a family thing as well. So
definitely.
And mum was got a keen for you to go into that space.
Yep.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's good. And so that would have been round about the end of 2020. Is that right? You finished in first term. So okay. So straight into it. And tell me a little bit about the lead up to that, and how it is that you sort of progressed through the COVID period, because of course at that stage things were locked down, and we were in lockdown for a little while, and there wasn't much movement, and there wasn't much, cars weren't on the road. So just what are your memories of that period leading up to, the kind of, the latter part of the year?
Yeah. Very depressing, to be honest. I remember being in year 12, and it was around March in 2020 when it all started being like on the news and everything. And I remember formal potentially being cancelled, and then I was like, this is like bigger than I thought it would be, like, because everyone was calling it like the spicy cough, and it's just another flu and everything. But then everything just started to close down, and I was like, hey, this is a lot more serious than we all thought, I guess, because I was, 18, 17.
Yeah.
And I just didn't think much of it, I guess. But yeah.
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
And then, so your term for early childhood was which campus? Was it a local school or here, or university here?
Yeah, it was just a primary school up in the hills.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that leads, I guess, into 2021, which is things started to get into the more, what are we going to do about the COVID period? Tell me a little bit about that, because I think the vaccine rollout happened in early 2021 or thereabouts. I think sort of March, or forget exactly when it was. But tell me a bit about the lead up to that and your experience leading up to to the first round of injections.
Yeah. So I remember work kind of putting out a post that says we've been mandated in this industry for both of your vaccinations, like the first 2 doses. And that was towards the end of 2021 when that post was made. Yep. So my boss started asking for certificates and proof of vaccination. Right. And yeah.
You'd started in that job at what point, earlier on in the year, or?
So that I started that job in start of 2020, I think.
Started 2020, yeah. Okay, so you'd sort of had a bit of time under the belt and getting used to it and enjoying it. I mean, it was the sort of work you wanted to be doing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
100%.
And so just take me through that. So I mean, the rollout happens, I think, in the vaccine rollout happens in that part of 2021. But had you? I mean, what was the background? Had you thought about what it meant, and had you thought about the prospects of having the vaccine and all that sort of thing? Just sort of chronologically, how did that work from your point of view? When did it first come to mind?
I remember my dad's always been onto it and very does his research about it all. So he talked about it quite a bit, and then I had a few conversations with mum because for my age group it was, you won't be able to go clubbing, you won't be able to go to you won't be able to do this, you won't be able to have your friends around. So they were really convincing for my age group to get the vaccine, to get vaccinated. I remember having a few chats with mum. She wanted to make sure that I was doing it for the right reason and that I wasn't doing it just because, we were kind of scared and we were kind of, forced into it because of all these, they projected so much fear into everyone, different age groups. So I had a few chats with mum about making sure I was doing it for the right reason, but work was mandating it anyway. So yeah.
And what were your friends saying at that stage? Like, for people your age, because you would have been 18, I suppose, about that stage. Yeah.
All for it. They were all for it.
Yeah.
I remember seeing so many posts about, because they wanted to do the right thing. Everyone my age group wants to do the right thing. Get vaccinated. That's what we were told was the right thing. There was no other option. Like if you wanted all the restrictions to be lifted, you'd want the vaccination. Everyone needs to get vaccinated. So.
And were you under the impression at that stage that, you were helping to stop the spread, you're protecting others and all that sort of thing? So even in your own mind, was that sort of playing out in your own mind when you were thinking about it?
Yeah, that's what we were told. Yeah. I know that, about my parents' age group, they were told that if you don't get vaccinated, you're going to kill your parents because they're, compromised with their immunity and very scary.
Yeah. That was a scary time. I guess the lead up then to the first dose. Tell me about that. So when did you have the first one?
It was October of 2021.
Yep.
The first one was the 1st of October. Sorry. And then the second one, I had the two Pfizer vaccines, and the second one was on the 22nd of October.
So tell me about the first one. So the first one on the 1st of October, you had it. Where did you have it, by the way?
I had it locally at Aberfoyle. Yeah.
Somewhere down there.
Yep.
And tell me about that. So what was your experience with the first dose?
Didn't really notice much after the first dose of my vaccine, but it was the second one that really affected me, I think. And you said the second one was, did you say a month later or thereabouts? Yeah.
November, that was thereabouts. So the first one, happens, and the second one, and are you taking the second one and the first one basically because you've been told that your work is mandating it? I mean, that was if you had to break it up, putting aside the fact that everyone was talking about it and everyone wanted to go clubbing and all that sort of understandable stuff. Yeah. Was the main issue work?
Yeah. I wanted to keep my job. I loved it. Yeah, definitely.
And so tell me about the second shot in November. take me through that and how it played out.
Yeah, so I went in with my mum. We got vaccinated at the same time. Had it, and then I think early the next month I presented in the Flinders Medical Centre in the ED with chest pain and high heart rate and, dizziness, all the bad stuff. Got my bloods taken, had an ECG, it was all good. And yeah, so
that came on a little bit later after did you notice anything to start off with? I mean, straight after the second dose, sorry? Or
it was only after the first dose.
Sorry, after the second dose, sorry.
Yeah, so just straight, it was a couple of days after I was in the ED. Yeah.
So racing heart, a range of symptoms, as you've said. That's November of 2021, which is now a good solid, not quite, but almost 18 months ago.
Yeah.
You're in emergency. Take me through the sort of the months after that. What was the sort of timeline after that, and what were the doctors saying? What were mum and dad saying?
The doctors were kind of just saying it's anxiety, ruling it off, and then as anxiety. Then in 2022 was just no energy at all, was missing my alarms for work, couldn't get up. There were days when I genuinely couldn't move out of bed. Mum and dad just thought I was being lazy. For the whole year, just not coping basically. And it's because I've been involved in sport and fitness my whole life, for me not to wake up for my alarms and go to a job is just not me at all. Yeah.
And so how long did you spend in hospital after when you first went in? Was that a short stay? Was it a long stay?
It was just a short stay. I think I just went in and because I was really concerned. I'd never had chest pain before, ever. And they just did a few checks and sent me home, basically. So
within 24 hours or a few hours?
Yeah, a few hours, yeah.
And so after you left, tell me about the kind of the symptoms playing out from there. Was it, the persistent symptoms, obviously, but how bad were they and how long did they last? Were they coming and going, or were you getting a consistent, kind of range of symptoms?
Yeah, so the consistent one was probably the fatigue and exercise intolerance. So it was fine for a bit with running and walking, but then it's just got a little bit worse towards the end of the year. And something that I'd never experienced before was sometimes I'd stand up and I'd black out, my vision would just go all black, which is what happens to people before they pass out normally. Tremors, I was experiencing tremors. Yeah, very extreme stuff that I've never experienced before.
And this was consistent? This would continue on from, when you came home from hospital? They were consistent symptoms for how long?
Yeah, still got them.
So there's the same suite of symptoms. Yeah, okay.
Definitely.
Obviously, this has been it's been a difficult 2 years. What does a day in the life of Hanna look like these days, right now? What does it look like, and how has that changed from the person in October 2021?
Yeah. Well, now I guess I'm on the right track to my healing. Found a good GP, so it's looking better. My days are looking better, but there's always days where it's can't do much, can't leave the house. Chest pain that is really painful sometimes. Can't think straight. Headaches. Sometimes I'll make my bed and I'll have tremors. I'll be shaking and have to sit down. Not very nice stuff to go through.
And so do you find you're still tired, obviously, but things are improving? And you made that observation, which I was stuck in my mind about, just getting these racing heartbeats from simple things like, hands above your head or something like that. You also mentioned to me before about walking the dog up an incline, like a simple incline around home, which is a bit of a hilly area. And that gave you problems as well, something simple like that. So you're still finding those problems?
Yeah, so if I'm doing any exercise, it's got to be on flat ground. There's no hills involved. Otherwise, I struggle with my heart rate, get short of breath and feel a bit dizzy. And washing my hair is really hard, as silly as it sounds, being in the shower. My heart rate can get up to 180 beats per minute. Simple things like that just make it really hard for me on the bad days, it's really hard and I can't do much. And then on the good days, it's still hard, but I can just do it. I'll just get get it done and over with.
Yeah, these are pretty distressing incidents, right? You talk about heart pain and still having it. You've had ambulances come out. How many times roughly would you have had ambulances come to the home?
I'd say about 3 times. There was just a few times where they'd come and say, like the first few times they'd say it's anxiety, and then just, you know, one of them called my local GP and booked an appointment for me to go see it, to check me out, I guess, and make sure I was all good. But there was...
All right.
I can't speak. There's so many words in my head.
So many words, I know. That's all right. And what about, so we'll try to get, like, in terms of, in 18 months, you've been through, you've been to hospital more times than you would have wanted. You've been through, you know, ambulances more than you'd want. Like, estimate, how many doctors would you have seen? Like, hospital specialists, the whole lot. Like, roughly how many doctors have you had to see?
I'd probably say just under 10. Like, quite a few. Lots of specialists, lots of doctors, lots of paramedics coming out, and most of them just saying it's anxiety. I'd say I've only just found my good GP that doesn't dismiss what I'm going through. But a lot of the other ones are just...
And multiple appointments as well. So it's like, you know, of each one of those, maybe 2 or 3 appointments. A lot of time to be going backwards and forwards with doctors. The other thing I wanted to touch on is, obviously this is a big thing in your life at a time when you should be doing other stuff that, you know, whatever we do, I can't remember that far back. So that's my problem. Whatever kids are doing now in their 20, you don't want to be doing this. What's the experience been with your friends? Have people been understanding, or have they been a bit of a mixed bag? Like, what's the reaction you're getting from people when you tell them what you say happened to you?
A lot of my closer friends are very supportive. Like, a lot of them, you know, will help me go around in a wheelchair if I need, and make sure I'm okay, check up on me, and sit down with me when I need to. And then a lot of them kind of, I don't hear from them. They don't know what to say, so they don't say much. And a lot of them also kind of, when I tell them in person, they'll kind of back away and be like, oh, well, you know. Yeah.
Have any been nasty? Have you had any that have just, you know, like, you know, you're just doing this and you're making it up and all this sort of, have you had any of that?
I wouldn't say so. A lot of people have kind of, you can kind of see in their expression and their body language, they're not really believing what you're saying, but none of them have been nasty and made nasty comments towards me.
Just tell me a little bit about the period through after you you sort of gone home and you're not exercising anymore, and you must have been back and forward between doctors a lot. What were they saying? Like, what were the doctors saying about what was happening to you? Were they sort of pinpointing something, or?
Yeah, most of them were just saying it's anxiety. We didn't really think much of it at the start of 2022. We kind of just, believed the doctors that we did listen to, and they were saying it's anxiety, basically saying it's mental health issues and stuff like that. Not much about anything physical that would be happening or anything like that.
Did you, in that period, because of course, I guess through that period, we had Omicron had come and gone. Had you ever actually then got COVID after having, 2 injections?
Yeah. So in March, I got the vaccinations in October of 2021.
Yep.
And then in 2022, I got COVID Sorry.
It's okay. It's all right. So just on the issue, you've had these symptoms, but of course we've gone through all of that time when Omicron came through. Have you ever actually had COVID?
Yeah. So in March of 2022, I got COVID. Went to the hospital, went to the ED. Mum drove me there, and was told to sit outside, given a chair, a blanket, and a phone number to ring if I worsened, which we rang a few times, but they were just very strict on not letting me inside because I had COVID. And the COVID rooms were full at that point, I think, and they just needed to wait a few more hours. So I was just outside in the ambulance waiting bay, which was... And
what did that do? I mean, COVID, when you already had these symptoms, you already had the fatigue and the heart, how did you find, having COVID itself on top of all of that?
It was really tough. It was... my vision kind of, main reason why we did go to the ED is because my vision was getting kind of fuzzy. I was extremely fatigued, and then, everything that I was already going through plus COVID was never a good mix at all.
And how long did it take to get over the COVID symptoms per se? I mean,
I don't know.
You may not know.
I don't know even know if I'm still over them. Like a few doctors that I've spoken to at the start of this year, when I did find some good doctors, spoke about long COVID. So,
and have you found those symptoms that you described prior to getting COVID? Are they now worse, do you think, or about the same in terms of the fatigue and the head spins, those sort of things?
I would say that after COVID, like in 2022, they were worse. But after this year's been really big, getting the help I need, so it's gotten a bit better.
And when we spoke before, you mentioned kind of vagueness or head fog or something like that. Has that been something that started after the second shot? Has that been a consistent thing where you're sort of a bit forgetful? And
I would say so. I remember last year just kind of feeling always confused and losing my train of thought, and not really can't remember what I'm saying mid-conversation, and I was never really like that. Like, I love talking. I never would forget what I was trying to speak about. And
and so that's been consistent. What about in terms of from there? You've there is a compensation scheme with the government. Have mum and dad and you explored any of that? Has it been any help? Has it been any use? Because it's obviously been a fairly big time. Like, you've had almost 2 years of basically incapacitation, which comes down to the second injection. What's been the experience with the compensation?
So what I now know I have is POTS, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, which is from the vaccine. And Mum looked into compensation. She's been on top of all the researching and stuff while I've been trying to recover. Compensation doesn't cover POTS, because it's not considered, it's not in their compensation scheme. So I know a lot of people have reached out when I've shared stuff on social media about them also having POTS from the vaccine. So it's not like I'm not that rare. There's quite a few people.
I'm interested in this because we obviously at the start you said that a whole lot of your friends were all going for all for it. Have you noticed any change around there? Have others had experiences as well, or have you found people reaching out to sort of share experiences they've had post-vaccination as well? And this is more prevalent than people realise. Yeah.
I've shared a lot of things on social media recently, just in this year. Shared my story, and a few of my friends share it as well, which is really great because then it reaches more people. Yeah. And I've had people reach out that way because my friends have shared it and it's gone to more people. Lots of stories. I know quite a few people with POTS from the vaccine who have lost, thousands of dollars in trying to get their doctors to give them an answer and forcing tests to be done, and just their doctors just ruling it off as anxiety or whatever, dismissing us. And
do you get the feeling, without being too critical, of course, of the profession, the medical, do you get the feeling that there was always a certain dismissiveness about what you were experiencing and the sort of the correlation between vaccination and your symptoms? You talked about them saying this was all anxiety, that's got to be frustrating when what, had you ever had anxiety before? Everyone does, right?
Yeah,
but nothing debilitating.
Nothing major. Yeah. I remember, so the start of this year, we went and saw a new doctor.
Yep.
And we talked about what I was experiencing, and she kind of, was tossing up what it could be, and she was the one who first thought it might be POTS. And Mum wanted her, so she referred me onto a specialist, and Mum wanted her to write on the referral that it was, I've only experienced these symptoms after the vaccine. But it was very she couldn't do that. We don't know if we can do that. And Mum, fought for that. So good on her with that one. But definitely had to push our way through, and Mum was very helpful with that.
The doctors have had a pretty difficult time getting the truth out there as well, I think, and that's sort of, what you're experiencing there. I think a little bit of that is the doctors saying, well, we don't want to enter into this because we think we might get in trouble. That seems to be your experience as well. Have you found, though, that subsequent doctors you've been speaking to have been more, is it becoming more accepted that, what I'm saying here is true, this is what happened to me? Are you finding your experience is getting more, accepted by the medical profession? And was that the case originally? I suppose, that you talked a little bit about the anxiety theory.
Yeah.
But do you think the walls are breaking down a little bit on this?
Definitely in this year, I found that, there was at the beginning of this year, I was in hospital again, and one of the specialists that works in the hospital came and he said he thinks it's POTS as well. But I don't know if it was that hospital experience or a different one. It's all kind of messy in my head. But I remember being in the acute cardiac ward and the nurses telling me that this is a very real thing and they see it. Doctors don't.
Right.
Because doctors, I guess, are dismissing it, and then they're getting these patients are getting worse, going to the ED, and the nurses are having to pick up the pieces.
Right.
So the nurses are seeing it, and they're I've heard firsthand from quite a few nurses that this is very real, and they've seen a lot of people come in to especially with heart issues being the number one.
And what about? I mean, obviously you've had a series of serious reactions, to it. What was your experience like and did you report this to the Therapeutic Goods Association, the TGA? Did Mum do that? Were there any sort of, was there a process there, or was it all too hard, or?
Yeah, so we kind of have only just gotten on top of it this year, with it all, and Mum's been doing all of that sort of stuff, but we haven't got around to it yet because we didn't really know what we were supposed to do. There wasn't much information about what you're supposed to do once you know that you have a vaccine injury, like what's next. Yeah. So we've had to figure that all out ourselves, and we're only just getting onto it now.
Which is presumably, why some of these things are not reported with the VAERS scheme, because of course it's very difficult to do that. So I can understand that. And what about, in terms of, work stuff now? Tell me about, have you ever gone back to work, or are you still struggling through the symptoms?
Yeah. So end of last year, I went and saw my kinesiologist that I've been seeing for my whole life. He put me on some supplements for my energy. At that time, I still didn't know what was going on. Yeah. Nothing was confirmed yet. But he just gave me some supplements for my energy. I picked up another job as a waitress. And so I was working 2 jobs at the time because I had so much energy for the first time in like a year. Then at the beginning of this year, left that childcare job and continuing on with my hospitality job, but I'm reduced for 5 hours a shift.
So in terms of you've sort of walked away from the childcare stuff, is that something is that something you wanted to do, or did you just feel like you had to move on from it, or is it just circumstance? I mean, it seems to me like you've had this dream to go into it. COVID comes along, vaccination comes along, and put a big torpedo through all of that as a result of being mandated. Tell me a little bit about what that's done to the the kind of the career path, and will you come back to it, or you don't know?
I think so. I'd love to. I do like that, working with kids. But the reason why I left was it was too hard for me physically. There's a lot of up and down. There's a lot of cleaning up after the kids, and there's a lot of physical work into it that goes into it. So I had to leave it just because it was getting too much. Like it was early shifts, and it was just too much work physically for my body to handle. So And
what about your doctors saying now in terms of is there progress being made? You said you're seeing some new people and things have improved a little bit. That's taken some time, but what are they saying now about the next 2 years or the year, or what are the sort of what's the advice about what to do and how to get better? Yeah,
so I've found Mum had a few friends that know of really good doctors and GPs that can help, that have been really helping with the people who are vaccine injured. So I've been seeing a new GP at the Bayside Medical in Glenelg, who's really helped me with getting me on the right track, because specialists kind of give you medication that helps you short term, whereas my GP is helping me with supplements and helping my body heal itself, rather than just a short term drug that's not really going to help in the long term and not going to fix my body.
And are you finding you sort of able to get back out and do some exercise now, or is that still pretty hard?
Yeah, that is pretty hard still. I do use a wheelchair sometimes when I'm shopping around if it's too much. Like if I've worked a full day if I've worked my 5 hours, I can't do much else some days. Yeah. So it really depends on the day. I'll think I'm getting better, and then it will kind of drop off a bit. Yeah. And then,
Okay. So, and you mentioned, as we were talking there, you mentioned you've got a new GP that you're really happy with, who's been great. And I think you said that she has, kind of been working on protocols that are working for you, but having to kind of almost reverse engineer them to find something that works for you. What's she done that's helped? And, what's your view on having to find someone that's just as dedicated as she is to sort of fixing it? I mean, the system shouldn't surely have to do that.
Yeah. So it was sucks that I had to, find someone that can actually help me. But she is very knowledgeable with it all. Works with a lot of people that are vaccine injured. So, but it's very she's got to change it up for every person. So she'll put me on, I've tried celery juice. I know that was Mum did some research on that, which helped a lot with my chest pain.
Mm-hmm.
And then bromelain, which gets rid of the spike protein in the body, which is from the vaccine, the spike protein. And right now, zinc is probably the best one that I've been on. It's helped a lot with my energy. Because my body just doesn't retain it at the moment. Yeah.
And that's helped. And so you're sort of, how are you today compared to 18 months ago after that second injection? I mean, what would you say? There's a nice improvement? Things are improving a bit?
Yeah, definitely. I would say I'm definitely improving after seeing my GP and getting on the right track with it all. Getting on some supplements and doing the right thing, resting and everything. I'd say last year was probably the worst of it all, and it's just looking up. I do have a lot of bad days, but at least there's some good days in the mix as well.
Things are improving, which is good. Almost 2 years of a lot of personal, trial for you, but obviously this is a team effort. Like there's a lot of impost put on the family as well. It's a lot of time and energy, and you've got a very supportive mum and dad. But tell me about that. What impact has this had on the family, broader, close family and distant family as well?
Yeah, the main support is obviously in my household, which I have my boyfriend and my mum and dad and my sister, and they've always been there throughout all of this. It's like mum and dad have just been behind the scenes working on doing the research about things, finding me the right doctors, and, my sister being there for me and my boyfriend being there for me just emotionally. Which has really helped because I wouldn't handle this all by myself, I don't think. So,
It's a lot of work, though, as well. Obviously, like, getting appointments, getting, going out and getting the medication and all that sort of stuff. It's a massive thing for the family. And,
definitely.
In terms of the way in which this has been viewed by friends, doctors, whatever, do you think you've been sort of treated differently because you're attributing this to the vaccine? I mean, obviously you've got an injury. How do you think that would have been if you'd said, you're injured in a car crash or something like that? Have you felt there's a certain stigma attached to this particular injury?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like if you were to replace vaccine injured with any other health issue, I'd be treated much better, and even if I was talking about my story on social media about any other health issue, then it would be like everyone would, listen, and wouldn't be seen as controversial because, in my opinion, my health isn't like a political topic. It's not up for debate. It is what it is. I am vaccine injured. There's no doubt about it. And I find it, hard when people don't believe me. And when people shut me down because it's, I don't want to get into it.
You had a bit of that. I mean, even doctors have said that to you. You said, talked about anxiety and whatever it might be. And what about the actual treatment as well? I mean, it's obviously a little bit different, the sort of stuff you talk about, zinc and celery root and all the rest of it. How's that been met with by people and other doctors and,
Yeah, I think specialists try to push their medications onto their patients quite a lot. So when we went in there and Mum brought a list of what our GP's been giving us and what's been working, he kind of just said it was witchcraft and, didn't believe it.
Despite the fact that it's working.
Yeah, said there's no data to prove it.
When I was growing up, I just thought, whatever the institutions say is right, everyone's here for the right purpose and they're all trying to help. I mean, what's that done to what's the last 2 years and your experience done to your trust in medicine?
Yeah. I don't know. It's very hard to trust the government and what they say. They were supposed to give us what can go right with this and what can go wrong, and we're only given what can go right with it. And the media projecting so much fear onto everyone, and making it different for all age groups to scare us, put fear in our minds and kind of feel like it's the only option for us to get the restrictions lifted and everything back to normal is to get vaccinated. So, yeah.
What about, I've got to ask this question, what's your view on politics? Politics had the ability to change all of this. It had the ability to, not allow the process of mandating. What's this done to your view on government and politics?
Don't trust them at all at the moment. I'm young. A lot of my age group is the future of it all, and we're going to be putting everyone in their seats. And you want us to have trust in you, but right now, not at all. No.
You're very, very welcome to say that. This is a safe space. One last thing. We talked a little bit about the dent this has had on, your view of medicine. Has this had an impact on your view on the vaccine industry as well? I mean, one day, you'll be a mum and all that sort of stuff. Does it give you any cause for concern about some of the other things that we might have been told along the way that are safe and effective?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely will be thinking twice. I remember speaking to some of my friends and being like, something like this happened again where there was a mandatory anything, what would you do? And they said, definitely do my research and look into it before I just trust someone right away. So they've definitely lost a lot of trust in young people. Yep. Do
you trust the media? Do you trust the news cycle in this country anymore? Did you ever? And would you have at 18 trusted what you read in the newspaper?
Yeah, I don't know. It's you always kind of don't believe everything you see on the media and everything. There's always two sides to everything, but it's really interesting how they don't show people like me stories much. Like they don't tell our stories. They don't. I'm on Instagram and I'm on social media where I share things about my story and it's flagged as it gives a fact check about COVID, and then you click on it and it will just say, the vaccine's safe. There's a lot of tests being done. Even on your first episode, there was a fact checker on it. I know. Yeah.
Well, it's probably reasonable for me, but not so much for you. But tell me about, have you had any inquiries from any media sources? So have you had presumably a journalist from the Advertiser knocking down your door to hear this story about this?
Not really.
Not a single bit of interest?
No.
And have you tried to sort of get the message out there, and what are you experiencing? Are you having difficulty?
Yeah. So my mum's been the main person to kind of tell my story while I'm going through it, basically. And then I do my little bit on my social media to try, to tell the young people, like my friends and everything that's going on, because they're still, I feel like most of us are still very trustful in the government, but,
And in terms of getting that story out, you want this, because it's a brave thing to do, to come in and talk about it, and it really is, and I really mean that. But the reason for doing that is you want to be able to tell the story so that other people understand what's happened. I mean, there's obviously a personal element to this because you've been through the ringer, but is the purpose of the exercise to show people how the system can break down and let people down? I mean, is it the need to to sort of get the story across so that other people are wary of this particular therapy?
Yeah.
What's the sort of rationale between aside from wanting to shout about it, which I can completely understand, is there any other, purpose in trying to get the message out? Is it sort of help other people?
Yeah, definitely. I want people who are vaccine injured and are a bit, anxious about speaking up about their story to hear my story and kind of not like, I don't expect everyone to speak up about it. Some people were going through enough. They don't need to talk about it. But I want people to feel, I want to be a person that people feel comfortable talking to about their experience for sure. Yeah.
I think that's great. And look, I want to thank you for coming and sharing the story. It's a really, really brave thing to do. And I think there will be more of these stories coming out, because there are many. We hear from them all the time. Not everybody's as brave as you are and your mum and dad are to actually tell the story. So I just want to wish you the best on your recovery. Thank you for sharing. It's a brave thing to do.
Thanks for having me.
Well, there you have it, straight from the young woman herself, 20-year-old Hanna Moore. It's a terrible story, but it's so important to have this out there and being told. The mainstream media, all the media really won't touch this story, and it's such a brave thing for Hanna to have done to come in and speak to us today. And I want to say to people that are listening that might have changed their mind on this stuff is real. You may know people that have had a similar experience. It's so important that we get this message out there. So thanks for watching, and make sure you share this podcast with your friends.